welcome back to Freedom Algo. Oh, sorry, hold on, my mic's being weird already. Sorry I'm late, but give me a second to fix this. Yeah, there's an issue though. I just got to fix it. I know it probably sounds kind of okay, but there's an issue. I just need to address it. Just give me a second. Otherwise, it's going to pick up all kinds of background noise. Well, it's going to end up picking up background noise. I don't know. For some reason, it's not wanting to work with me. So, oh well, we'll just kind of go with it and see what happens. But hey, everybody, thanks for being here. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I got to take a few seconds to map out some of this price action because there's a couple of things since I just got back. Sorry I'm late. A little bit out of whack this morning with some of the scheduling. I had a bunch of stuff come up, so it's just totally funky for me today with the schedule. So just bear with me a second as I try to get set up. Good to see you, Nigel. Good to see you, Peter. All right, I'm going to try to map this out a bit. All right, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. I got to do one thing. Hey, sorry about that. Sorry. Let me see. I think it's good now. Let me know if you can hear me okay. All right, there was a couple of issues there that I just wanted to deal with real fast. Oh, yeah. So I'll talk about that in a second, Nigel. I will talk about that. That's a tough spot right there. Basically, there's a congestion is what that is. So the short answer is when you have a spot like that and you start to form some bars and you get like a doji and you kind of end up with like these 3 bars stacked sideways, it starts to look like congestion at a key area. And so when this thing broke, it looked like a failed breakout, but when this closed above, and then this one barely closed inside, and then you get this lower high that looks like, hey, failed breakout, lower high. The challenge right here is just that what you have is actually congestion that formed, and it's possible that it could go either direction here because it's almost like a micro range. So the whole way that I look at it is like this. Here, I'll draw a little thing just to show you. So you could kind of draw almost like a little micro range right here. And so it becomes this thing of like, we don't know which way it's really going to go there. It's almost its own little micro range because you have this bar, this inside bar, or this kind of bar that makes one tick higher, but it looks like a doji. And then this bar that kind of still closes up here. Now, if this thing closed more bearish, like, below these levels, then it wouldn't have really looked like congestion. But when it came up and closed at right here, I was concerned about that being congestion right there. I hope that makes sense. And you can see that here because then this bar gives you congestion too. So you can just see what happens there. It's just a congestion zone. And unfortunately, that happens sometimes in breakout areas, and you have to be careful. So that's kind of the short answer of what happened there. Let me get some music going and everything. Like I said, I had a couple of things. I was running way late this morning, so just happens sometimes. So I just need to get some music going and get everything set up. If you're here, smash up the likes. John, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, exactly. And you had a clue before you took the trade because of that inside bar. So even if you took the lower high, you knew before that it was risky because of the congestion and the possible congestion zone. Now, I will say, like, if this bar instead just was really bearish and you didn't have a doji here and this was just a big bearish bar, then I probably would have taken that as a nice lower high failed breakout. But because of that little congestion, you got to stay away. All right, let me, this day is crazy looking again. Had a couple of crazy price action days. I mean, if I zoom way out, look at this thing. It really turns out to be kind of a big range where we started off in the upper half and then we finished off in the lower half. That's really what this is. There's not really a consistent low though. That's the problem. Like you can see here, I mean, let me draw this line real quick. If I draw it off of these levels right here, and I extend this to the right, it looks a little better because you do bounce there once, but you don't even come back and test it again. So it's just kind of odd the way that this range performed. It doesn't have consistent lows, so it's a little bit of a challenge. It's just a little bit of a challenge when you get a day like this. So you got to be careful. And the upper side only really got tested up here, and did that move on me? I don't know. Maybe I moved this by accident. I meant to have it right there. Okay. So let's zoom out. Or sorry, zoom in, I mean. So we end up coming in this morning. You know, can't really do much with this. It's just a big move up during the news release. And what time was... There was another release around, what time? 7? I think it was over here somewhere. It was somewhere in here. Yeah, right there. So you had to be careful because right here there was another news release around 7 a.m. Like in this little move right here. So you got to be careful there. Anyway, we're kind of coming up here. And what you have here is actually a first entry, second entry long failure. But I don't think you want to take one there. It's above the EMA. It's not in the right spot. It's not where you're looking for a failure. So you just have to wait. There's no setups in here. Till finally it comes up and gives us this little like sideways stuff. We kind of make a new high and then make another new high. So this is a close outside. New high right here. And then it makes another leg up to a new high. Now, from here, you could see this as a new low from here because it's lower than this low. So what I see here is actually a first entry, second entry short. So it's a second entry short. It's also a lower high after a failed breakout of this level here. So a couple reasons to like that setup. Then we get a second entry long. Now I took this short and I liked it. So it was a good short. I didn't take the long, but I think the long is decent because it's a failed breakout here. So you actually have a first entry, second entry long. It's also a failed breakout, and it's sort of like a triple test if you draw this blue line right here. It's sort of like a triple test as well. So a couple reasons to like that. Comes up. Close outside, new high, failure. Sorry, why did I say failure? I didn't mean failure. It's actually a first entry, second entry short failure, and then it goes down. Again, you're not looking for failures right there. So you just wait. It comes up to these highs, and then it starts reversing. Now, when it reverses here, there's a first entry, second entry long failure. This is a decent one. I just think it's not off of a key entry point, though, and you do have, if you drag this over, you have room to those lows to test like one of these levels here. So I think it's reasonable, but not ideal. Comes down, and we kind of form this like sort of spike and channel pattern. There's a big trap right here. So I was looking at this like a spike and channel, and what you have is actually a first entry, second entry short that engulfs this bar, but it's kind of it's a trap. If you took this short on the engulfing bar, you would have taken a loss there. And also, if you took a long here, taking this like a second entry long or like a failure, you also would have taken a loss. So it's kind of a big trap, but at this point, you don't want to take the short because it's too close to the lows. So you just kind of have to skip all that. You get an overshoot. I think this was an overshoot because it just doesn't really fit. And afterwards, it comes up and it just aggressively goes out the other side. So I think this might have been an overshoot. Even if it wasn't, like, you could drag this down and say that this is just a channel that's like that. It doesn't really matter because either way, you expect after this move that we're going to try to still make the low. So there's a first entry, second entry short there off the EMA. You don't want to take that. And again, because it was an overshoot, you don't want to take that. And you see it would have failed, so it's good to think of this like an overshoot here. When it doesn't fit the price action that well, that's probably what happened. So you don't want to take a short yet until after you see what happens at the other side of the channel. Then you have this low and you have a first entry, second entry short failure, but you're not looking to take a short there anyway. It makes this high now, and then it does make a lower high. Now this lower high closes outside of this possible channel. So this could have really just been some sort of tighter channel. You could even have said that there's some sort of tighter sort of thing going on, something like that. I don't know. It's hard to say, but the reality is there's a lower high that closes back inside here, and you're expecting this to go to the lows. So if you took this, it's reasonable because a bunch of people went long on this right here, and they got trapped. But I still think it's risky. It's not like an ideal setup. It's just a lower high. It's, you might still get another, move up on this channel. So again, that's a tough one. I don't think that most people should take this. I didn't take that trade. It gaps over anyway, so you probably don't even get it. All right, so anyway, it does make a first entry, though. And then it comes down and makes a second entry long, and it's a close outside new low of this channel. It hasn't made a new low all the way, though, so on this. So you're still thinking that we're going to come down and test this low, and we haven't. So if you take that long, it's a little risky. There's no higher low set up because this is the higher low. And at this point, it's moved too far. There is a second entry short here. So you have a first entry, second entry short. It does look like it's got a close outside, new high. Pretty reasonable. There's a lower high, but it's a doji, unfortunately. The lower high would have been better there, but it's a doji. And this is just expecting that we might test that low still. That's all that is right there. And then you get a first entry, second entry long right here. And at this point, you might take that, but I don't know. There's not a lot to work with there. Yes, it did bounce there before. You could start, if you dragged a line over like this, you could kind of say it's like a triple test. You could see that there. Tested it here, here, and all these tests over here. So there's some reasons to like taking that long. And then you actually get a first entry. This is an inside bar kind of second entry short. So you could kind of treat this like the swing and treat that sort of like one, but it's really just a triple test, and it's a really nice bearish bar. So I like that one a lot because of just how it's set up. Probably trap some longs there on the inside bar. Comes down. And then what you get here is a pullback, first entry long, pullback, second entry long right there, and a failed breakout. That's a decent one. It's basically a failed breakout of this level. It's a second entry long. There's some reasons to really like that a lot. You definitely, this one's cool because you get a runner. You can see it doesn't come back. Now this is that spot we talked about where you kind of are messing with this little micro range, and you break out the top, and you actually get a first entry, second entry short right here. And so below this bar is actually a lower high after a second entry short. But it goes higher there anyway, and then it all happens in one. So it looks like a failed breakout lower high. But again, I marked this little arrow here to point out that there's congestion here. So I already talked about this one earlier in stream, but I'll just say, I'll reiterate. When you get a failed breakout like this, and it is a close outside and an equal high, and then you get a lower high, I would have really liked this if this was not a doji and this was the actual lower high bar. But because you get this bar and then this one that closes up back at the bottom of these levels, it just looks sideways and congested to me. It looks like a micro range, and that's why I drew this little micro range to show that. And then, and when that happens, you don't know. It's kind of 50-50 that it's going to go out of either side of that micro range. So you don't know. So it's just a little bit of a risk. Now, you probably have a higher probability that you're going to get the scalp versus it coming all the way back, but it's still not a sure thing, and you can see that there. So I wanted to make sure I clear that one up. I drew it earlier and posted the screenshot to my paid community, but I didn't have a chance to explain it. So that's, there you go. Which, by the way, as always, if you want to learn about the paid community, I have a link tree. It's in the description. I also have it pinned in the chat. It's right here. This is the paid community. Everything that you need to learn for this is all in here. I explain it. I'm going to be coming out with a new video that will explain a few more things because the tools that I built that come with it that say coming soon, they're like so close to being done. There's just one minor issue that I'm still working out. So I have them available for beta testing right now, but there's still one problem with it. So just letting everybody know that. But yeah, it's all in here. You can see everything's here. You can see that throughout the session, I'm posting these live chart updates. It's all here. You can see people talking about their wins. People share their wins in here. There's a bunch of stuff, really good stuff in here, really great community, and you get access to the premium Discord. So really good stuff. All right, so then we come down here and we have this little downtrend. So we have this uptrend, close outside. It makes one more leg up after that. So it moves to another new high, gives you a lower high here. Then after the lower high, you get another lower high. So you actually kind of have like a first entry, second entry long failure there. But then it comes down and makes this low. And I looked at this like a little channel. So this is, from this low, you actually have a first entry, second entry short. However, these are equal lows. So when you have an equal low, a lot of times you reset your count. That's why I labeled these the way I did. Because when you have an equal low, you can treat this like the new low. You have both options. So you could treat this like a first entry, second entry short. This is a close outside. You're expecting a new low. It's not guaranteed though. So you have to be aware of that. It's not guaranteed that you're going to get the new low right away. So it's risky to take the second entry short on this bar. It is a little bit risky. But if you looked at this like a first entry short, if you looked at this as your new low and said first entry short, and then you get this bar that gives you a second entry short, then I think it's a lot more reasonable at this point because it's also a lower high after the second entry short right here. And it hasn't moved that far yet. I think at that point, yeah, it's only moved like a scalp, basically, a 4-tick scalp. And the ATR was kind of high. So that's a pretty nice one right there. I like this one, this setup here. Comes down, tests the range, and then breaks back in temporarily. And now we have some sort of a crazy move up again. So let's see what we got here. Let me draw this. See if there's any way that this fits. See, I was originally drawing it like that, but it actually doesn't fit very well. So it's probably going to be drawn off of one of these higher lows. It just, yeah, see, that's possibly. I have to draw a couple of possibilities here to see what fits the price action the best. And this is pretty common to have to do. I'd say that looks relatively reasonable. Because this one is probably tighter if that's the case. It just doesn't really fit very well. Unless you might have one off this higher low like this, and then this is a closeout side attempt at a new high. There also might be a wider channel here. So I'm drawing the wider channel as a possibility. You can see that off of from the low through this level. It might be a little bit. We're going to see if this is actually in play right here. Because you actually kind of treat that like a double top, and it's like a first entry, and this could form like a second entry long if you treat this like a double top. But let's wait and see what this candle does right here. And then we'll know for sure. And this has been kind of how it is today. Like, there's a lot of these little channels that are where there's like a smaller channel within a larger channel, and we're just seeing a lot of that today. By the way, everybody, please smash up the likes. We only got 7 likes right now. Let's see if we can get to 40 likes today. Let's get a goal going, 40 likes. We've got 49 subscribers, so let's try to get to 5960. That's the goals for the stream. Forgot to say it earlier. And sorry I was late again, everyone. It happens. Sometimes life just happens. Thursdays and Fridays are a little tight for me right now with the way the mornings go. So I'm still trying to figure it out and get into the right swing of things for the schedule. So that's just what it is right now. And bear with me one second. I gotta look at something real fast. Give me one moment. Gotta minimize everything and that. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right, and we're back. So it does look like a kind of a second entry long there, but let me drag this a little bit. I like the channel fitting like that. It actually fits kind of decent as a possible move up. Now, if we zoom out, this is putting us back in that upper half of the range where we were earlier this morning. So we could easily go to these highs. And this just, you can see when you zoom out, it just looks like a range day. Just pretty sideways, but it's a big, big range. And that can be challenging. Now, a higher low here could be interesting. Oh, wait, let me minimize it one more time. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Where is it? Hold on a second, everybody. I apologize. I gotta deal with something. Okay. All right. If you got questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. Just gotta type something real quick. Give me one second. I do, Ricky. I have a rule. I call it the 2-loss rule. If I take 2 losses in a day, I stop trading for the day. And that is because I trade with a high win rate. So if I have 2 losses, then I don't take enough trades that I should have 2 losses unless I'm doing something totally wrong. Like I'm just reading the price action wrong. I'm making a mistake, like something like that. So if I take 2 losses, then I know that there's something wrong in my psychology, my mental state, the way I'm looking at things. So I just stop trading for the day. So that's sort of like a damage control model that I put in place for myself. Typically, I won't have 2 losses, though. Typically, if I have a loss, it's only going to be 1. But occasionally I do. And I have to stop. I don't remember when the last one was, but I told everyone on stream, hey, I had 2 losses, so I stopped for the day. So that's kind of how that goes. I'm a scalper, so I just try to trade with a high win rate on my scalps and then get the occasional runner. That's how I do it. But good question. How about you, Ricky? Have you found something that works for you? Gonna get some incense going for the office here. Nice. All right. So this is kind of a funky little area because it's kind of like a channel, but we keep on coming up to this level. So you start to wonder, was this really just a channel here, close outside, and we're just in a range? You know, you can kind of see. You draw a level off of here. It kind of looks like it might just be a range. So I am evaluating this right now. It's going to depend right now on what happens at this possible channel edge. Now, I will delete the wider channel if it appears that it's not quite in play. I will delete the wider channel if necessary. Going to depend on what it does here. Yeah, Ricky, yeah, that's why I have the 2-loss rule. Because we're all human here, right? Like, now, of course, some traders will tell you, you got to master that, you should be able to just keep trading, blah, blah, blah. But, like, look, we're all human. And it's very likely for us to start to tilt if we start taking a bunch of losses. And, you know, revenge trading, all that stuff becomes a factor. You know, judgment calls. Like, I know personally, after a loss, I will say this is just me. I'll just totally freely admit this. After a loss, I become a little bit more liberal on my trade criteria than after a win. So I just know my own personality is that I'm more conservative if I've had wins, and I'm actually more liberal if I've had losses. And I'm not using that in a political sense. I'm using that in the other definition of the words. And so what I mean is that if I take a loss, I get annoyed and want to make the money back. So I become more willing to take a trade that is what I would call a yellow arrow setup instead of a red arrow setup for a short, or a yellow arrow setup for a long instead of a green arrow setup for a long. So I will become more likely to take a questionable setup. I'll be able to take I'll take a more questionable setup if I take a loss first. That is just something that I know about myself. So I've actually had to work really hard to not do that and just go, okay, if I have a loss, I'm still going to treat this the way that I would had I not had a trade yet, or had I had a win. So I have to like try to force myself to do that, and it's hard. It's a hard thing. So after 2 losses, forget about it. I would be willing to take all kinds of bad setups, and that's why I don't take trades after 2 losses. That's where that rule comes from. Because I know already everything in me wants to take any setup after a loss to try to make my money back, and that can be more problematic. So that's something that I've just become aware of with my trading over time, that I've identified and worked on. After a win, a lot of times I become even more conservative. And so then I'll be like, okay, well, I had a win. Now I only want to take a trade if it's really amazing. And so that's something that I've also worked on, because you need to be able to take a setup and not like stop yourself from taking a good setup, you know? It's like not every setup's going to be A++. You know, sometimes you're just going to get an A setup and you can take that, you know, and you probably should take that. So that's kind of how I look at that. Yeah, so you heard someone say we can only make like 2 emotional decisions a day. After that, we can start to lose it. Yeah, I think you're probably right there. Like, you know, I think as people, we tend to make emotional decisions most of the time. This is why certain sales tactics work so well, right? Like, for example, let's say somebody tells you, hey, there's this amazing thing that's going to change your life for $100. And you see this thing that's $100 and you're like, well, yeah, that thing actually would really help me in my life if I had this thing. And you've been like looking for a solution to your problem. You're ready to go. You see this thing that's $100 and you're like, wow, that's exactly what I've been looking for. Like, I really need that thing. Well, the funny thing about it is, let's just call it a widget. You need this widget. It's going to solve all these problems that you've been having lately. It's something that you've been looking for. Well, the funny thing about that widget is that you're only going to buy that widget. Most people will not buy the widget even though they need it and it's $100. And then what happens is, let's say you somehow are on a mailing list or you see that widget and all of a sudden it's on sale for, let's call it $90. Let's say it's $10 off, or let's say $85 or whatever. It's $15 off. Well, now you feel like you want to buy it, and you might buy it because you are like, wow, I got a deal. When really it's like, let's say the reality is, was that $15 really going to make the difference for how good this thing was going to be for solving some of the problems that you had? It was probably worth more than $100 to you, but you wouldn't buy it because there's an emotional component to it that helps push you over the edge. Or let's say you see it, you know about it. Well, now let's say you're going and doing your thing and you run into some issue and you're like, you know, oh yeah, you remember seeing that product and that would have solved your problem. And let's say that problem comes up again. And now you see that product again. And let's say it's not even on sale. You might still buy it. There's an emotional response that you're having in either case. There's an emotional response that goes beyond the normal logic of it. Because the normal logic would be, hey, I found this thing that would solve my issues. It's not that expensive compared to what it's going to save me, but you won't buy it. You won't pull the trigger because you need that emotional push. And that's why sales tactics like that work so well. And that's why you see companies all the time throwing out discounts or adding some sort of bonuses or limited exclusive things and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, it's because sometimes it just takes that emotional push for people to make the decision. So it's kind of an interesting thing because just as people, we don't typically just operate out of logic and rationality. We operate out of emotional responses. And even when we think we're being rational, a lot of times there's some sort of emotional response that we're having. And that is part of why we're reacting the way that we are. And it's really no different in trading. Like, a lot of times you feel emotional while you're trading, and then it affects what you do with your trading after the fact. So we're all prone to this, and we all have to identify those things and find ways to deal with them, because you're not going to eliminate emotions. You're just not going to do it. Not possible. We're all people at the end of the day. At least that's how that's how I look at it. If anybody disagrees, let me know in the chat. If you agree, let me know in the chat as well. If you have any feedback, go ahead and share it. Yeah, it's funny too because so I've read a lot of books about psychology, And one of the things that's interesting to me is because I've been in business, right? So I've been in business for a long time. I used to own a company. I got it acquired. I was a VP at a company before. I worked my way up and was a VP at a company. So I've done that. I have my own businesses. Like I've been an entrepreneur. So basically, I've been always really interested in just like sales, marketing, all the components of business, operations, efficiency, all that sort of stuff. And one thing that has always stood out to me is that when you start learning about sales psychology and marketing psychology, one thing that you learn is that like it really is like our humanness that like that ties us all together. Like there's so much stuff that works. There's so many tactics, quote unquote, that work. And the reason they work is because they appeal to our psychology and emotion. And it's like cringy in a way because we know when it's even happening to us and it still works. That's the thing. That's the thing. Like I remember I was reading this book. It was a psychology book written by this guy. Man, I can't think of the name of it now. It's escaping my mind, but it was an older book. Man, why I can't think of it right now, but it was written by a guy who was originally a plastic surgeon. And later on, he wrote this book. He started writing books on psychology. And one of the things that came up was he was talking about how people will convince themselves of things and like force themselves to not make decisions that are good for them. This happens all the time. Everyone knows someone like this. Perhaps you do it yourself. How many of you have made bad decisions before that you know are bad decisions after the fact, but in the moment when you made the decision, you convinced yourself it was an amazingly good decision and you perfectly reasoned it out? That's not actually using rationality. That is just making an emotional decision, but trying to trick yourself into thinking that you're using reason and rationality to make the decision. See it all the time. And so I remember I was reading this book about it, and like they were talking about the psychology of sales and like stuff like that in it, and how it applies to sales, and how like if you're on like let's say a sales call with somebody, a lot of times what happens, and this is going to be related to trading, so just bear with me a second. A lot of times, oh yeah, actually I think that is the book. Here, let me look it up. Sorry, I just bonked my handpan, so you might have heard a loud noise. Let me see. I have it on my Audible. Let me check on my Audible. Hold on. Because I think that might be it, actually. Where is it? Library. That sounds right. Yes, so that's right, Das. It's the one that I'm talking about is called Zero Resistance Selling by Maxwell Maltz. So it is that exact author, and it's about psycho-cybernetics is what it is. You're right. Man, I can't believe you picked that up from my loose description that I was giving. But anyway, the funny thing or the crazy thing about the book that really stood out to me was how he was talking about how as you're talking to somebody, if you start to talk about the things that are possible objections that somebody has to something, which are all going to be pretty much emotional and not usually reasonable. If you like talk about that in a conversation with somebody, by the time you get to the point where you ask for a sale, they're just like, yeah, like I'm good to go. Because like there's all these emotional things that happen. Like people see these conversations as adversarial, all this stuff. It's not that different with the market. People see the market as something that they need to fight with, but you don't need to fight with the market. It's not a fight against an object or in something. You're trading against other people. Like there's other people on the other side of your trade. So you're not fighting the market. Like you're just going back and forth. You're going back and forth with the market or with other people. And a lot of times if you start to realize that you're probably going to do this to yourself, you're going to convince yourself to not take a trade or convince yourself to take a trade when it's not a good one because you're feeling emotional. That's what you need to identify and realize. And that's what, like, you can never trade like a robot, but what you can do is come up with a specific criteria list that you will only follow to take trades. And you will have losses sometimes. Every one of us will have losses. But because we will read the market wrong sometimes. But as long as you follow the rules, you're good to go. Follow the rules of your strategy. I know that was long-winded, but hopefully it was helpful for somebody. Yeah, Ting, that's why I do meditation as well. Yeah, so that's why you do meditation. So you played poker professionally for almost 20 years. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, the book, The Mental Game of Trading by Jared Tendler that I always recommend to people, that book is written by him, and he also worked with poker players, and he basically applied the same concepts for poker and trading. Yeah, it's a good book. It is. It's a good book, and I think it's really useful. I'm gonna widen this channel actually, and I'm gonna see this little small channel. I'm actually gonna delete that, and I'm going to make this my original. Annoying. Let me get that out of the way. Can't stand that whenever I accidentally double click. I wonder. See, I don't like to keep making channels wider. I don't like to do that typically. But if it's generally fitting the price action, it's reasonable. It's reasonable to say, hey, this might just be a wider channel. I don't like the way this midline looks right now. And I don't like how, like, we're fading right here. So I'm going to wait and see. I'm not going to keep making it wider and wider and wider, but we'll see. Yeah, I agree. Every time I make a bad decision, it's pretty much emotional as well. And that's the thing, like, it's so true. It's so true. Like, think of this. Think of a bad trade, for example. Like, let's say you take a loss, and then right afterwards you're like, oh, I see a lower high, I'm going short. Even though it's not really a setup that you would take. It's just a lower high. It's not actually a setup. It's not actually a second entry. It's not actually a triple test. It's not actually close outside of a channel. And you just take the lower high. You know straight up that you weren't using rationality there. Because, yeah, it's a lower high. So that's how you're justifying it. You think you're using rationality because you're going, oh, well, it's a lower high. Well, the reality is it's not a trade setup that we would take. You know, it's not. And you might win the trade, but that doesn't mean that it was a good idea. It was an emotional decision. Most of the time, it's going to burn you because that's not the way to go. The rational decision is to go, well, I lost the trade. Oh, well. And then on the next trade, still go through all of your criteria that is required for you to take the trade. And that's why they talk about that in Best Loser Wins in that book, about approaching every trade as unique. All right, so let's see what's going on here. Hey, we only got 11 likes. Everybody hit that like button. I keep forgetting to ask. If you haven't subscribed, definitely do that. See if we can get some more likes cruising. Pretty nice out here today. I'm going to try to go for a trail run a little later. So I got to work on some stuff at some point with the developer. We're trying to work out the last kink in the indicator suite. I did make it available in the classroom. I didn't put a video yet or anything. Oh, wait. Oh, whoops. I was editing. Hold on a second. Let me look. Give me 1 second. I'm just taking a look. Yeah, I did put it in the course in section 2.4. If anybody wants to check it out. I put the tools in there, but you can wait to install them because there's one more issue. So I'm gonna actually end up changing that file pretty soon. So maybe I'll just make it a draft because it's not all the. So I'm gonna actually make it a draft for right now because I think we need to be. I'll just wait because should have the file hopefully done later. He's trying to work on it today, my developer. So we'll see. Sorry, I had to look at something real quick. All right. I did not get them yet, actually. I didn't get my mountain passes yet, but you know, this is sorry, this is totally off topic, but hey, we're just chilling anyway, just watching the price action. By the way, there is a first entry long here, so we'll see what happens. So I am not exactly sure, but I'm almost positive that what I'm going to do is just get fusion passes. I think I'm just going to get fusion passes this season. I just don't really want to ride at Mount Hood Meadows that much because I just can't stand all the traffic and how crowded it gets. Like, honestly, every time that I went there last season, I got annoyed. And even like there was some times where like I was like, oh cool, it's a Tuesday morning, and I would like just get done. Like I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna head up, and I'd go up at like 10 a.m. and I had to park at the overflow lot on the Hood Riverside, and it's like, really? It's a Tuesday. Like, what are we doing? So I don't know. I kept getting annoyed by it. All the crowds. Every time I ride there, that's when I encounter some of the worst possible riders. Like, just skiers or snowboarders who get way too close. People just being super reckless. I mean, even in general, like every time that I hear about somebody getting, like last season, for example, my neighbor's friends were visiting, and dude got smashed. Snowboarder was riding, got smashed by a skier from behind for no reason, like on a wide open run, and got a concussion. And it's just like that. Every time I hear those stories, it's always at Meadows. It's never at Ski Bowl or Timberline. And so also Ski Bowl and Timberline are closer, and I just prefer them overall. Like I just prefer them. So the only thing about Meadows that I like more is that it has Heather Canyon and some of those like really sick runs that are just, there's just nothing, like, you know, you just don't really get that at Timberline. But I don't really care because, you know, I just don't. So yeah, so I'm probably just going to get fusion passes for everybody. And, you know, that's just how I'm going to do it. Just get fusion passes for all the kids and for us, and that'll be how it goes. What about you? What are you going to do this season? Let me know. We definitely got to get some laps in. Also, what's Steven going to do? Because I think he's working weekdays, right? So let me know. Yeah, the tracked out issue is probably one of the worst. Like if you go to the mountain, dude, I have friends who go to that go to Meadows, and like it's like their whole thing is like get there super early, get a front row parking spot. Like they have to get there like literally hours before the lifts even open, and then line up to get first chair. And then that way you get fresh tracks and you can get the best run that gives you the fresh tracks. And it's like, okay, but that's one run that's going to be like that. Maybe you get a second run that's also really good. And then after that, what? It's just tracked out. Like there's so many people there. Like I feel like when I go to like Timberline, it's like I could be getting fresh tracks all day. That's pretty funny, actually. You gotta wonder here if there's a flatter channel, something like this. It almost seems like a spiking channel. You can kind of see that. Like, I don't want to keep making this channel wider because it doesn't really fit anymore if you do that. So what I'll do is I'll shrink this channel down and look at this as, hey, is it a possible... You know, it's very, very flat there, the way that that's transitioning, but oh well. All right, I need to take a look here. Is there... I was kind of distracted there. There's a second entry there, but you can't really take that. High or low, but this is so sideways right here. It's just like... one of those spots where, you know, you can't really... It's hard to really take a trade right here. Yes, there's a first entry, second entry, then higher low. I just don't think that it's reasonable, though, to be taking that. Let's see. Anybody got any more questions? I was originally planning to do a longer stream today, but I might not. I might not because I might want to go trail running soon. Not a ton of questions coming in right now. Price action has slowed down a lot. It was a lot more wild early, and now it's kind of slow. Be right back. I gotta go check on the dog. I am back. Yeah, it does look like there's kind of a flatter, like almost like this was a spike and this is sort of its own little channel. That's what it's kind of looking like here. All right, well, I think I'm going to wrap up here, everybody, because why not go enjoy the sunshine? It's early, it's fall here, but we're getting some nice, like, sort of almost summery weather, so I'm going to go enjoy it. And I got to work on some stuff with the... That's what I've been typing about. I'm trying to work with the developer on a couple of things to get this thing finalized. And then I'll be updating some videos and all that for the course, new setup chart video, all that sort of stuff. So there's going to be some stuff coming out pretty soon. But in the meantime, I hope everybody has a good rest of the day. Hopefully you had a great trading week. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday, and I will see you all soon.